You don't think you can paint like this. I know it because you're watching this video. But the chances are you don't think you can achieve something like this because you don't have the knowledge, or you think you don't have the skill, or you think you can't do it because you don't have an airbrush. None of those matter. I've got some knowledge and skill, but I don't have an airbrush, and I'm going to impart my knowledge and skill and some product knowledge in terms of what paints you use for you so you can achieve this. If you're painting anything that's larger than that, an inch square, like a panel or even a small vehicle like a dreadnought, this is a fantastic technique. Mistakes do not matter. Any mistake I make in this video is a recording mistake. This technique has mistakes wrapped up inside its own being, and it just embraces them. We're using stippling and our mistakes will be hidden within our stipples. We're going to be using underpainting, so we put down some white. We're going to use two different types of white. You can just layer up your white and use more of it. We're using like a normal white and then Bold Titanium White from Pro Acryl, which is super, super strong and is amazing. A lot of people have and use because of that trait. And over that, we put our green, and all of the light dark information we have underneath shows through the green, and that's how we get this soft effect. But any imperfections that we have underneath are just lost. Like magically, they just disappear. And then we do a little stage of stippling and some dry brushing on top. An edge highlight if you want, and you are done. Some more amazing news. This is my fancy one. And then this wing of this one is the one that we've done in the tutorial that you're watching now. I put them up on Instagram, holding in mind this one took 4 times as long as this one on top of this work. They were like roughly 50-50 on which was their favorite. We've just gone for bright colors, smooth technique, and then really dark, bold panel lines. If you are a tournament gamer or you're gaming somewhere that doesn't have perfect lighting made for Instagram or whatever, this stands out really well, and I think people kind of forget that in the modern day. On the table, this looks brilliant. That is all you need to do, and it is so quick. It is like nasty fast. Finally, I'm going to make a card that's going to be at the end of this intro, so pause and screenshot or whatever. I'm going to show you a few recipes for doing this in red, doing it in yellow, some other bright colors with Games Workshop paints. But we are going to show you how to work out whether your paints can achieve this, because you need a semi-transparent paint, not an actual transparent paint that has transparent written on it, but a paint that isn't crazy for coverage but has a bright color. We've used Moot Green here. Anytime I'm using this one here, you could be using Moot. That was done with Moot. This was done with this. Let's jump in. Side note, how good do my new cabinet frames look in black? Black is best, I think, for if you don't know the environment you're in, this looks amazing. And the brighter the stuff is inside it, the more awesome it looks. I need to do more bright stuff. Why do I not paint more incredibly bright things? They look amazing. I'm going to be using largely Series D Extra Large and a smaller brush for this. I'll show you what this is for in a second. This is really important though. And if you've done pre-shading with an airbrush, we're going to be doing that, but with dry brushes. Let's take a sip of coffee before I try and explain this. It's quite simple, but I think people kind of neglect testing in general with painting, and this is a really good example of how 15 seconds of your time can give you some information that is extremely useful. Okay, so I've swapped palettes to my texture palette that's been primed black. It's really important that it's black, but it's also quite useful to have a little bit of white on it somewhere, so we're going to be making use of that. Right. Well shaken, and let's go and let's see what we need to ascertain from our tests here. So I'll put down, change temperature since I last used that one. That's why you get volcanoes, by the way. We'll get a slightly old scooping brush, and we'll take out some Moot Green. Right. So aside from seeing that this one's a little bit more dull, these are pretty similar paints. They're kind of the same green. First thing I'm going to do is I've got quite a lot of water on my brush. You can do this on a wet palette if you want, but I won't be using a wet palette for this. You spread it out, and we're just going to see what the coverage is like over black. And the coverage of this over black is crap. That does not mean it is a bad paint. That means it is a paint that doesn't have much white or black in it normally, or it's not down super thick or something like that. Of course, if I left it this thick, or as thick as it is as a blob, it would cover over black, but we don't want to do that. That'd be a bit over the top. So we'll string this one out too. Again, really wet brush. Okay, so this one looks to have a little bit more white in it, and this one's got a little bit more black in it. You can just tell that by looking at the difference in the two paints here. Let's get them really close. All right, so the thing that we really want to see, so I'm now going to stop using my normal brush. I'm going to use a dry brush. So just use my dampening pad off camera because I don't want to cake up the brush. I'm going to string out a little bit of this paint. And we'll see that if I spread it out on my palette, it still doesn't want to cover over black. This is what we're going for. If I use it over white, I'm taking only a tiny bit of my brush when I do this, by the way. If I put it over white, it'll come out a lot lighter. So I want something that's really easily affected by what color is underneath it. All paint is affected by what color is underneath it, especially if there's extreme a difference between black and white, but we're going for one that's very easily affected by it. Try out this one. This should turn out even. There you go. See that kind of, it's like I've used a highlighter pen over it. Almost looks fluorescent because it's got white punching through it. That's what we're going for. So that's how you assess your paints. And really easily, that's going to allow us to put down a paint either over a darker section or a lighter section. And then whether it was dark or light underneath is going to show through the green. Hey presto, we did airbrush pre-shading without needing an airbrush, and it's way faster than you think too. I know I've said it a few times as well, but this is unbelievably forgiving. Because we're putting down something over pre-shading, our pre-shading does not have to be perfect. So think of this as slap chop without contrast, kind of. Right, our first step is to base coat our mini. You can base coat it, it's rather an undercoat, I guess. Undercoat / base coat in whatever you want. I would use a cool purple or a cool blue, something like that. It's a very deep color. It's gone straight over black, so it's barely showing up as a blue, but it is a deep blue in this case. I use Huldra famously from scale 75, but Nagaroth Night, any of the deep blue or green colors or purple colors would do perfectly for that. Just your taste. The white does kind of matter. So something you can take the option to do is use a normal white and then save an uber white for highlighting your highlights. So uber white is unsurprisingly going to be bold titanium white from Proacryl because it's nuts. But I'm going to start off using a slightly softer one. Any white you have is fine. You can even use an ivory or something like that. It just needs to contain a lot of white inside it. All right, let's go. Dampening pad is out. Now, this is going to be an ever so slightly heavier application than we'd normally be doing at first. The only thing we need to do is aim to not hit the panel lines. Of course, you can pre-shade in any way, but for this one, if you want it to look like this, our aim is to kind of leave these dark. If you go over the lines, it doesn't matter. We'll be fixing that with the smaller dry brush and stippling in a sec. So try to avoid them. If you don't fully avoid them, it doesn't matter hugely, but try not to hit them. Now, important explanation of how to get this behavior out your dry brush. You need a domed one. And some people who clean their brushes like this rather than like that, they end up making them flat. So that's why I clean like this, because it has this lovely shape all the way throughout its life, even when it's really old and really short. I'll find an extreme example to show you. So here's an even older one of my brushes, and you can see it's even more domed. That's absolutely perfect. Right, we take a tiny bit of our paint. Doesn't matter if it goes off white because there's green in there. Test, that's what we're looking to put down. And it's really simple. I want you to go around and build that up. So what I would suggest is you pick a certain area and you try and complete that area. So we're going to do the first stage, and then the way to make stuff more strong, like in the centers here, is you just do more layers. So let this stuff fully dry, but go around. If you need to make your brush smaller, you can just squidge it with your fingers, and that'll allow you to do more delicate work than maybe you thought was possible. If you don't know what to do around some details, just cover them all in white, and then we can fix it by putting down some blue over that later. So you just do that. It doesn't need to be super neat. It should be fairly even, but you're only aiming for it. It's not mandatory. Keep it in mind, but don't worry if it isn't perfect. So first layer is dry. This isn't quite thorough enough. That's a really extreme example, but what we can do is we put it down hard in the middle, and then you can kind of soften it around the edge. Think of it, it's like using the Microsoft Paint spray gun tool. That's what we're doing. And this is very much like airbrushing would be in this situation. So if you're an airbrusher, you might even find it easier to make this a technique work This is a bit more forgiving though, because this pattern isn't consistent. With an airbrush it is. So kind of mistakes get very easily hidden just within all those little dots and speckles. You can use your pressure. And if you're trying to be really subtle, you can just take your dampening pad, add a bit more water, and then your stipples will come down kind of like a glaze, come down thinner. So that's all we're doing, just hit everywhere apart from the lines. Like I said, if it's too delicate for you, especially if you're trying to go fast, just hit all of a section and then we'll try and stipple the lines afterwards. A couple of tips, these will come in more in the highlighting stage at the end. I'd suggest kind of pinning I'm trying to hold mine around forever as best on camera, but I'd suggest you pin yours to the desk, get your face like down so you can see what's going on. You don't want your model wiggling around, and if it's held in your hand, see mine's wiggling because that bit wasn't touching, if it's held in your hand it'll wiggle a bit more. Just try and make sure you can see exactly what is going on. It's quite easy when you're using what's almost white on top of black, but make sure you've got really good information about exactly what's happening on it. All right, if your brush is clumping together, see mine's all pretty and kind of fanned out. Mine is capable of doing these little dots. There's not going to be any lines, there's not going to be any blobs there, and that's because we've only got a little bit of water in the very top of the brush from using the pad, and we haven't pressed our brush into our paint, we've just about taken the paint on the top of it. This is why, whatever we want to do, we're going to find much easier, even with a big brush. If you can use a big brush for longer, your brushes will last for ages because big ones are tougher, but also you'll paint faster. And the dilution itself is definitely easier if you're using a big brush. Getting the right amount of paint and water is harder in a smaller volume brush, whereas we are having a really easy time of it. Easy. You can always look at some fancy paint jobs online and just copy where their bits are lightest. And it's really easy for you because while people online may have spent hours trying to get super smooth blends, you can be pretty wave and just put down really, that's a pretty strong white that I've got down there. All right, that's going to be absolutely fine. Just make sure that you treat everything as a whole, even if you're avoiding these lines. Carry on that highlight kind of across. And if you go over a line, it's not the end of the world, like I said. Can be easily fixed. Okay, it's going fast. This has taken barely any longer off camera than it has just to record everything that I've done pretty much. We've got the big boy, so we've got out bold titanium white. We've got to take care with this. It's a really strong paint, but it's great for us to have another white available that's like a level up. We've used a weaker one. It's not like the one I've used is weak, but this definitely is strong. So try and keep it at the top of the brush, put out a really thin line. It's very hard for me to take too much. And then what I can do with this is in the middle where I want it to be really bright, or areas I've picked as highlight areas, I can add this to them. That's what you use the two different types of white for. Always get asked about cleaning. We've kind of been doing it as we go by using the dampening pad, but I will absolutely take the opportunity to give my brush a little bit to clean out before we change. And this needs to be cleaned for when we do the green step. You don't want any of this white showing through, so give your brush a really good clean now, not at the very end when stuff is dried to it. Already looking better, but I'll clean it out. Let me show you on paper. See barely any colors coming off, we're nearly there. Just taking the soap out of my set. So what I'm going to do is, this will just keep the bristles soft. Use a tiny bit of the soap. We don't need to make things really wet. We still use the dampening pad. And the soap will help any little bits of color that are in there come out. We don't want those coming into the green. See how much the soap helps. It's still very gentle soap. You can use it mid-session. But yeah, and give it a proper clean before we do our following steps. Okay, so now we take our undercoat / base coat color. This is Midnight from our range, but you could be using anything here. Nagroth Night, any of the darker colors that look at, they've got a little bit of black in them. And we're using a really small brush. Literally a small D. You need to be more careful with a small brush. So when I take paint, I'm going to take it from the smear that's at the side that I've left when I've put this out on the palette. See, I'm not even touching the thick paint. There's no way for this to get thick into the brush. and I want it to leave easily. And then get your face closer than I'm able to here with the camera, but anywhere where you've deleted your lines, you can put them back in. You can also paint your lines if you want here. So around this detail, for example, just doing this with a size 3. That's my base coating, size 3. That one's old and has lost its point. Use a good one. It's a bit harder to do it like this, but what you can do, you just don't try and have any straight edges anywhere. That's not what we're going for. Now I would have my face right next to this, and I'd be kind of looking at my model from a sideways angle. Sorry for the focus. To see exactly where I'm tapping. So whatever you need to do to get the best angle, do that. I can't, but you can. For the brave amongst you, although it's quite hard to go wrong with it, if you want to really exaggerate anywhere, now is the time. So like this little blob, Eldar detail, whatever it is, we can just pretty much straight paint flat ball titanium white on it and it'll be okay. So those highlight areas that you'd picked, if you want to, you could stip around the edges of this to soften it a bit, or just poke it with your finger. You can bring anything up. Experiment, play, have fun. Okay, so here we have the piece. I've actually put down 2 layered blocks, just like literally blocked them in fairly fast so we can see what a difference the fuzzy edges makes. You can see I've put blue around the edge here, put it back in. I'm going to do a little quick bit of dry brushing because we're going to be looking to pick out these edges somehow at some point anyway, and it's not unhelpful to do it now. So all we're going to need to do for that is some normal dry brushing, but it's got to be set up well. So go through the normal drill again, the thinnest line of paint possible, 1 drop of water off the back of the brush in the pad, we press it in, test the brush, that's too wet. Keep going until it just feels cold to the touch. Doesn't feel wet, definitely doesn't feel dry though, and it makes my hand feel colder. It's a really good barometer. Also how it looks on the palette is it'll leave a slightly damp patch that we can blow and it'll evaporate instantly. Now we take the smallest amount of the white possible. Very easy when we've made these tiny little patches. Only on the tips, we're not pressing into the brush, just the tip as normal. And then we test on the palette here. If we're picking out these edges, we're good. So now we should be good on the model. Carefully at first. Yeah, we're fine. Okay, so it's only after the test you can go into like yellow mode. And as ever, you're better off, especially while you're learning the brush and the model, being a little bit too light at first rather than too heavy. And set it up again. So I'm going to leave slightly more on this time, but I'm going to start with low pressure just to be careful. There we go. That should come out super well. Look how crisp our edges are. I'm going to do that, and then we're ready for the scariest step by a long, long way. Hit all these edges first though, because why not? You can already see kind of what we're going for. Oop. Echoed. See, we were just looking to duplicate that, but add color, add the green in this case. So I'm going to clean my brush because it's important that it's only got green in it, it's not got white in it, and then we'll do the green step. For once, we're going to go and replace the Danger Tea because you do need clean everything for this. Clean texture palette, clean water, everything. Okay, so I'm fully aware that I need to speak pretty clearly about this because when you talk about thick and thin paint, well, I need to be clear about thinned with water and then thick as in like we put down a thick layer of paint itself. What we're going to be doing is we're actually not going to be diluting our paint too much here, and we're going to be putting down a very thin layer. We'll be using the fact that this is not a high coverage paint, and we're kind of going to be smearing it flat all over the piece. It might look a little bit weird at first, but I've done this a few times before, so hopefully it's going to work now. And you don't need much water, but you do need to make sure that you're not putting down too much paint at once in too thick a layer. The way to do that is to work fast, and you kind of push it around until you've made sure you've smeared it flat using a big brush. So this is very unusual by mini painting standards, and I'd recommend maybe trying it somewhere like your palette first, just to make sure that you get things kind of right. So water in. Like I said, we don't need lots here. If you use too much, it's not a bad thing, and maybe you'd like to be cautious and do it in a couple of goes. You can do a couple of thin coats, that's absolutely fine. So if you think you've got it ish right, but it might be a bit too thinned, it's not the end of the world. You just really don't want too much going down. So all right, we just had a special type of problem there, which in English we like to call a fucking nightmare. And what has happened is my recording failed at exactly the wrong moment. I didn't realize until 3 seconds too late and I've already put paint down. So I furiously tried to remove paint before it had dried. I know this doesn't look ideal, but we'll still be able to show the same stuff. So hopefully the camera gods are with us and this one works, because otherwise I'll be a very grumpy sausage. All right, let's go again. It's okay, it's fine. Bloody technology. We'll be taking a little bit of water from the dampening pad as normal. The job of this water is to help the paint that's on there leave really readily and really easily, and also make sure that it doesn't instantly dry out on the brush and stays super smooth. We need the paint to be smooth for this. So I'm going to put out a thin line of paint. Again, moot green will work for this. The other ship that I showed you was done using moot green, so if you want to use a colour, you can use that one. If you want to get the same type of effect as me. Right. Dampening pad, a little bit of water, test it on the back of our hands. Feels not dry and it feels kind of cold to the touch. That means there's some water in there. We then take the smallest amount of paint on the tip of the brush and we're going to smear that all over our piece. Okay, it's not that diluted. I'm going to go fast. It's going to look kind of fluorescent. Should use a tiny bit more. Go back and get a tiny bit more before it started drying and put it down like this. All right. You're going to do a few layers like that. You can already see the type of effect we're going for. This isn't absolutely perfect, but the second stage normally goes better than the first. You have done this right if, in the time it has taken me to talk, it has dried. I'll see if I can fully dry it somewhere where you can see the reflection. There we go. Do our second coat. You do as many coats as you need. If you got little lines anywhere, you can always dab at it and that'll break them up. Okay, we're going to be good. It's going to be okay. I don't need to be so grumpy, apart from this lower lip. You just go as many times as you want. Keep it thin. I don't mean thinned with water. I mean a very thin layer of paint. You just smear it around really aggressively. Keep it in the top of your brush, not inside it. There we go. That's the stage where it starts looking smooth. It's all going to be okay. And number 4. There we go. Cool. So we've lost a little bit after our incident. We've lost a little bit in the recesses, but we can put them in just like we did here. Final quick pass. There we go. Pretty subtle. We can see how unsubtle it would be if we just done a flat line there with layering, but the stipplings are hiding loads and loads of little issues that just are no longer problems. All right, highlighting. So I might have gone over that one too many times. It's going to be quite a subtle effect by the end of it, but you know, you can go kind of punchy. Maybe you're thinking of like gaming tables, you want stuff to really stand out, or you can go more subtle and soft, up to you, whatever your preference is. You just decide the amount of layers and it's pretty easy to keep stuff consistent as well. This was actually done with different colors, left and right, to try out different paints, and it still turned out pretty similar on both sides. Just got to put your highlights in the same place, and that's the same however you're painting. Right, a little bit of our green. I'm going to take like pretty warm yellow. Keep on top of our dilution. Keep on top of our testing. And then you just do exactly what we did for our first step. So starting in the middle, we're going to build up stipples, and we're just echoing whatever was there underneath the green. We're doing the same as that, but we're now highlighting with a green mixed with another paint. This could be an ivory, it could be an orange. It could be something weird, whatever you like. Keep those stipples as dots, not as dashes, and we'll build it up. All right, so all you need to know about this is 2 things. Number 1, we're stippling with dilution here, so there's some water in the paint, and it's making things look softer. Look for the reflection of it. Hopefully you can see that reflecting. Don't work on it when it's wet. So you do some dabs, and then you let it fully dry. You need to let it fully dry. If you have, kind of within the area you've been stippling, normally in the center where stuff hadn't dried, a little area that's darker, that's because you didn't let your stages dry. It's the most common mistake at this stage. And all you need to do is just move on to a different area and stipple there for a bit to allow the area you were doing to fully dry. Some ranges dry slower than others. This can be more of a problem with them. Most ranges are pretty much the same. And as you find yourself using more matte paints, this has got a bit more white in it, it's a bit more matte, they should dry faster anyway, so it kind of handles itself, but you just have to be mindful of it. Trying to aim for the middle of our sections, stuff like that, and just build it up. It doesn't take too long, but just be kind of methodical in your approach, and make sure you can see what's going on with your brush, just so you're not guessing. Do your tests on your palette. Make sure there's lots of little dots, that's not enough. To need to take more paint off. That's better, little speckles. We're after little dots, not big dashes. Very simple. Obviously, don't go at this speed until you are confident. But once you do get kind of confident with it, and by that I mean you're confident with, you know what's going to happen with your brush, you've tested, you've observed, you've got a good example, let me show you somewhere. So that's doing lines. It's got 3 big lines in the brush. That means there's too much paint on there. You have to remove. We're just cleaning our brush here. Now we've got little subtle stipples, better. And it's pretty easy to go quite fast. I'm going to advance into adding some ivory now, and things will go super quick. I use this, but if you want to use something like Screaming Skull, it might go a little bit smoother for you, especially while you're learning the technique. Mix it in the same area of the palette. See, it's got a lot of white in it, so I need to make sure that I don't leave behind the green too much. And we can't leave the yellow because we've had that going on. And then we've got to be really careful with this. The white's going to make it a lot stronger, so we're going to test a lot. Test here, just so it's clearer for you. I need to make it so my brush is doing dots. We're nearly there now. There we go. And then to reawaken it, we just use the dampening pad. We don't need to go and get more paint. You can just use what's in there because it's quite strong now with that ivory in there, and go and go and go. I'll just do this for a little bit and we should have it looking pretty smooth. Almost done. Just to give you an idea, it's probably going to look very weird, but that is about how close I work when I want to see what's going on. For final stages, you just whatever you need to do, just get stuff close to your face so you're not guessing what's happening. Also, if you make a mistake, you'll notice fast and you can maybe lick a finger, wipe it off. Okay, so here we are. We've gone a little bit pastel. I'm going to do a tiny bit of fancying up. I've kept this at a pretty doable army level. If you want to go higher, I will show you how you can do that with a little bit of enhancing, but mostly it's just about kind of whether you want to pay attention to edges and stuff like that. We're going to do, though, some efficient panel lining. This is going to involve a couple of things. So we've got the color that we started with. That could be your purple, your blue, your whatever. And then we got a shade that is a similar color, or, you know, fits in with the color vibes that we have going on. This is perfect, and I love it as a color, and it's nice to use, so we'll use that. Now, magic tips incoming. These are crazy helpful. You can edge highlight before you do this, or you can edge highlight afterwards. Each has pluses and minuses. The minuses being you might cover one with the other, whichever way you go around. So you can do what I've done, or you can go for your personal preference. First step, for panel lining to be easier, I'm going to paint water in the gaps. You don't have to be too careful with this, but we don't want them to be dry. You don't have to do it all at once either. All right, before that's had too long, take the tiniest amount of our paint and mix that in with our green shade. I mean a tiny amount, just the tip as normal. That might even be too much. There's not much water in with this mix. You could put water in if you want. Now, before anything has had time to dry too much further, remove excess, brace. This is too big to be using a holder, unfortunately, so I'm just going to brace really firmly on the edge of my desk. We're going to put our wash in. What the wash will want to do is stay where it's wet. I'm trying not to tip this around at too aggressive an angle because it will run up or down. But you'll notice that my wash is really behaving very well. And that's because we made a little canal for it out of water beforehand. A little bit of a slip there. So yeah, that tip will help you a lot. It just stops your wash from behaving badly. Quite a bit easier not on camera and closer to my face. There we go, panel lining hacked. Okay, so that has done a lot. I just repeated it, did it twice. Much harder to get it to work on this bit where there isn't actually an indentation, it's just a corner, but we're okay and we can fix that with a little bit of stippling or something. Final step, I will show you the quick version of edge highlighting and then the slower version. You got to pick your color first, and that should be relatively simple. We'll go for something which is between these two. If we need to add the ivory, we can. But because we're putting it down as a layer, not as a diluted stipple, this should come out looking pretty punchy whatever we do. Might just need the tiniest bit of the ivory in there. Okay, we test on an edge and we're going to go over that edge if it doesn't look right. So as long as the paint's not thick, it doesn't matter too much. Yeah, we need some ivory. It just stood out as a little bit iffy. Start off with a tiny amount, carefully add more. Attempt 2. Let's let attempt 1 dry first. Yeah, there we go. That's all we needed. And test on the model, very low consequence. That edge is even hiding the mistakes that we had from the other one. So you can just do easy edges, like these upwards facing ones, or if you're feeling more confident, you can move on from actual edges to kind of inside edges. It is up to you whether you want to do these, because the chance of mistakes is definitely higher. At the very least though, I'm going to do the upwards facing ones. Brush is starting to dry out. Take some more go again. This is quite dilute now. So what I can do is I can highlight the blob. Nothing fancy, we're just going to push up from the outside to the middle. And I'll catch these ones too. I'm using a size 3 by the way. One slip at the very end, of course. Easily fix that dot. There we go. An entire army like that would look amazing. It's so much faster than people think, and it's just taking airbrush techniques and doing them with a brush. If you're being fancy, or if you're feeling braver, what we're going to do is you do the same stuff, but you would do it in the middle of a panel. And obviously that is way more scary. So we would be kind of diluting a lot. Then you'd pick a point in the middle here and you'd try and carefully kind of glaze it up to a lighter highlight. Or you could do it in the middle of the blobs or on the canopy. This one here, you can see that I've pushed towards the canopy. All right, some wonderful news. If you're scared of doing normal edge highlighting, you can, of course, just dry brush it. We've already done it once in the paint job. Exactly the same idea, but we've got to get the proportions right, just like we did when we were doing it with the normal brush. Okay, right. Let's take care not to overlay the brush. We know what we're aiming for. It's kind of like that. A little yellow, a little green. I'm just going to mix it next to it on the palette. Dab of ivory. So much, too much ivory. Fix it by adding small amounts of the other paint, or even by removing the paint that's on there. We don't want to fix it by, you know, fixing with addition and volume. We want to fix it with subtlety and a minimal amount of paint because we need barely any on the brush. I think we're safe. We test on the palette first. Are we just hitting edges? I think we are good. Yeah, we're good. So yeah, good news for those of you who think that the wobbling might be an issue if you're doing it with a normal brush. You can do it like this. And this will catch any edge from the direction that your stroke is going in. So if we want to hit these edges here, the ones we highlighted, we just have to come from this direction. And if I want to hit the opposite edges, just go from that direction. Or if you want to hit every edge, oh yeah. I mean, it is cheating, isn't it? Sometimes to feel like you're getting the edges like that. This will also generally soften the areas, make them look a bit smoother, but there we have it. So that's kind of a contrast between what I would regard as like a more subtle, fancy version of it, where we've kept the panel lines subtle rather than dark. This one, if I make my light worse, I wonder if I can. Okay, kind of. So I've got really good quality lights and it's making it harder. But all right, so yeah, if you're in a gaming table or something like that, painting like this tends to look better. It's clear what's going on. You've got really strong lights, you've got really strong darks, and maybe the subtleties of others is lost. I don't have yellow lights, but especially if my lights were like normal lights rather than neutral temperature lights, so, you know, making it, this one looks great and is way faster. So do have a think about that. It's not all about what's taken in perfect lighting for the gram. It could be how it looks in real life in your gaming situation on your bright green gaming table. What a difference. Daylight Company lamp, by the way, if anyone's interested. They're great. Luminos. Okay, so we are done. Hopefully you found that useful. Hopefully it has unlocked the idea in you that you can try something and it's quite difficult for it to go too wrong. A really good enhancement for this is a video I will make sure is linked at the end of this one, and that's cracks. Don't feel restricted by the colors we've used either. We've given you the method to test your colors. You could try this out in like a bone or something like that, anything you like. Just have a think about what color you start with. And if things look too colorful, which could be a thing, remember you've always got colors like the ivory we use in our final step to sort things out. Yes, these cracks were painted on and they look really cool. So yeah, it can make an amazing foundation. Hopefully you found that useful. Any questions you've got, as ever, let us know below. And all the brushes used in this video, which was primarily the extra large D and the size 3 and the small d, you can find linked below this video.